Hello, this is take 2, and it's pretty fitting for the topic that I want to talk about today, which is an existential crisis. And before I get into that, I had recorded this one time before, and it turns out I had the wrong microphone turned on, and it didn't record anything, which was really cool and fun. So I'm doing this for a second time, which is a-okay. And I think it's interesting because then that thing that I had recorded, I had put some my thoughts down into voice, and it actually didn't record, so it doesn't exist anymore, in this present at least. Anyways, the topic that I was going to talk about was how sometimes I enjoy asking questions, or some of my favorite questions really make people think about their existence, which kind of gets deep into the core. And sometimes I get the comment that it's like, oh, like you're asking this thing and it's going to give me an existential crisis. And I do it in a way that's not meant to invoke that. That's not the intention of the question, although it is an intention to kind of sit and reflect. And I like to think that I do it in a gentle way. I've not had anybody like really freak out or lose themselves, which is good, I think. So I'll give you the option here of tapping out if this is not something that you want to listen to, and maybe I'll see you on the next episode. So some of my favorite topics to really discuss are like asking those deep questions of who are we and how do we exist? And I think that sometimes those questions are not really things that people talk about at the bar or just in regular everyday kind of conversation. And that tends to be where I end up in where I like to take conversations, because I think that that's really what underlies how we move through this world. So I think that understanding where another person comes from gives me a better understanding of the other person, and it lets me understand them on a deeper level so that they can then hopefully express themselves in a more meaningful and real way. So I guess more than questions, like I'm not going to ask you a question per se. I guess I could phrase it as a question, but I'll just talk about two topics that kind of make you think and consider who you are. The first one is talking about life and its meaning. And this is something that I had spent a lot of time when I was younger considering what the meaning of life is. Like, why am I here? What put me into this existence? And at that time, it was just like, kind of, what am I doing with my life? I'm going through school, I'm learning things. Outside, externally, there's like work and school and praise and recognitions and all of these things. And it's like, what's the meaning of all of that? At the end of the day, like, how does that affect me? And it was a big question that I had pondered for a long time. And it wasn't until recently that I came to the realization or the conclusion that we are living in a existence that has poles. It has dichotomies, right? So there's good and bad, and big and small, and those types of things where on that spectrum, you can't know one thing without another. So in terms of meaning of our existence, I think the dichotomy then is that on one end, there is no inherent meaning. It's just existence. And at the same time, on the other end, life is full of meaning, and life is full of meaning that we assign to it. And I think that's the really powerful part of understanding that. When you understand that life has no inherent meaning other than the meanings that we put onto it ourselves, that gives me, at least, the license to understand that I'm the one who's making the decisions, that the situations that I see, the relationships that I am in, the perceptions that I perceive, those are all, the meanings of those things all come from me. And understanding that sometimes I may be viewing different perceptions through various distortions and understanding them in a certain way. And when I can understand that I'm the one who is putting those meanings onto the situations, that gives me a freedom to move from a position of being at effect where life is happening to me, where things are happening to me and I have no control, back into a position where I am the one who is in control. I'm the one who controls the meanings that I perceive and that I wish to experience. So sometimes when there's that mismatch of like, oh, like I don't know and life is all meaningless and now everything is happening to me, it's easy to feel lost and it's easy to feel powerless, because when you are having things happening to you, or you have that filter or the distortion that things are happening to me, then when you feel that things are happening to you, then there's nothing that you can do. And it's not to say that things don't happen to you. Like if I fell down the stairs, I would have fallen down the stairs. What I can choose is how I perceive that situation. If I am recovering and I'm holding on to the fact that I had this accident and maybe I had tripped on a rug, and it's like, who put this rug there? Who put this thing there that made me fall down the stairs? Well, if I look back far enough, maybe there's a series of causes that I had affected, that I had created, that led me to that specific place. And really all of that is to say I can accept that this thing happened to me, and then I can move forward from that. I can choose how I proceed to move forward. So when you understand that life has no inherent meaning, it's permission for you to define life as you know it. You're the one who's in control. So that's one thing that I like to think about, and sometimes I'll sprinkle into conversations kind of as a half joke, although I do believe that and I do mean it I do mean it very much. But it's okay, because other people will, if you're not ready to hear that or you don't have the frame to understand that, it just kind of washes over you and you're like, this guy's just talking kind of like weird stuff, and I'll just go back on living my life the way that I want to. The other thought experiment, or the other kind of existential kind of thought experiment that I enjoy, is this idea that I had learned, or I had first come across from a guru named Sadhguru, who is talking about how you are not the body, you are not your body, and you are not your mind. And when I first came across that, I didn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. It was like, what do you mean I'm not my body and I'm not my mind? If I'm not those things, what am I? All of those questions. If this is the first time that you're hearing this, you may be having those questions as well. So this is how I would explain it to somebody that I would have just shared this information with. It's like, hey, do you realize that you're not your body and you're not your mind? And usually people will pause for a moment and be like, what do you mean? And how I would explain it is, you have objects, things, maybe a car, clothes, a place to live, somewhere to sleep. Those things are yours, so they're not you. You have clothes. They're yours. They're not you. So then if you extend that even further, if I were to say you have hands and feet and you have body parts, those are also not you. Even if you look at your body in totality, like all together, you have your body, but you are not your body, because you can't be. It belongs to you. If you extend that now then to your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, these are things that you are experiencing. They are things that you perceive, so they can't be you. There's something separate than you, because you are the one who has to perceive them. So then if you are not your body and you are not your mind, then what are you? And this ultimately comes down to just understanding that there is an observer. There's some part that is perceiving and experiencing all of this human experience that we're living in. And when you can realize that, maybe through something like meditation, where you can sit with yourself and begin to observe the thoughts kind of go in and out. You notice your breath and you notice your body, how it sits and where there's comfort and where there's tension. When you can sit there with yourself and then observe, then you can realize that all of those things are other. And if you let all of those things go, you would still exist. So you are that awareness. You are that observer. You are consciousness. And what does that mean? Well, it's really hard to define, because how are you ever going to measure that? How are you going to put that down on paper, right? So when you, all that means is it's not really, it's not something that you have to do anything about, actually. All you have to realize is that what I've just described to you exists. It just exists. You have a body, you have a mind, and you are observing it. You are experiencing all of that. The distinction here, and the way that you could kind of consider it, is you can look at a photo of yourself and you can say, that's me. That's me. The body that I see, the hairstyle that I have, the clothes that I'm wearing, and the things that I'm doing. You might remember what you were feeling in that picture as well. And that's me. And at the same time, you still have an I that experienced all of that experience belongs to. And that is the I, that observer. And it's curious, I guess, like phonetically, the letter I, how you refer to yourself, like I am, also sounds like I, like your eyes, EYE, and that's like perception. So these are two of my favorite topics to kind of sprinkle in when I see fit in different conversations. And oftentimes it'll be like just dropping this here and there kind of as feelers, because low level, like I would love to just be talking about stuff like this all the time. And it's not always appropriate depending on the setting that I'm in. Although the more that I have these conversations and put these conversations out there, it turns out that a lot of people also resonate with these types of conversations. So I'm just looking to be able to have this conversation more and more, because I think that's what really gives color and life to this human experience. Take care.